Welcome back to Access Anime. I'm Henshin Ikeda, and today I'll be doing a walkthrough and review of Codebreaker Episode 7. Now, if you remember from last episode, we were introduced to a new character. Her name is Rui, so I thought that was worth mentioning. And she loves riding motorcycles, apparently, but also I should point out she was there on business to talk to Ogami in general. Now, she represents Eden, obviously, and she's telling Ogami, you gotta knock off what you're doing. You're now assigned to Sakura as her bodyguard. So that was interesting. Now we are taken to a different scene. We find out the Prime Minister has 43 agents missing. And you're wondering, well, how does 43 agents go missing? I mean, that's like a scratch on the head. But we do find out Hitomi now has 43 agents. Now obviously they're dead, and he's controlling them with his power. And he sends them off to where Ogami and Sakura actually are at, which is their school. Now we are taken to a different scene where we see Ogami and Sakura. They do notice those 43 agents attacking the school, or about to. They push like an old guy down, and Ogami notices right away, and he goes down, and they start to get to business, you know? This is what I was waiting for to see. But it's not what it appears to be. I have to say that, because we see Ogami, he's not feeling well, and he collapses, kind of. So now he's lost. Now that word, lost, will stick with you in this episode. It'll be explained, trust me. Now, we also find out Miss Kanda appears out of nowhere in a black outfit, a suit, with a machine gun, and she's calling Ogami Master. And you're wondering, why is she calling him Master? There's a reason. I'll get to it eventually, but I thought that was worth mentioning. And again, she's taking out all these random agents. Now, Ogami wakes up kind of, and he takes out the rest of the agents that go inside the school, but again, he passes out because he's lost. Now, I should also point out Toki in a different scene is also a little weak, and he's collapsing because he's also lost. Now, again, that was also worth mentioning. Now, we are taken to a different scene. We see Masumi, and Masami is sitting in a chair, drinking his tea, watching people, but he's not doing anything. Now, we assume he's the villain, or he has some part in this little catastrophe. No, that's not the case, but we do see Yuki appear out of nowhere, the codebreaker with red hair, and he's about to save the day, but he doesn't. Instead, Masami gets off of his high horse, goes down and saves the day, and he does explain that Ogami is lost. So again, that was last episode, and this is a new episode, so let's dive right in. And again, I'll keep my final thoughts and my rating at the end of the clip, so stay tuned. But let's dive right in. Now, we open up this scene with Yuki, actually, not exactly where we left off. This kind of feels a little weird, though. He's watching a TV on the sidewalk, and I guess it's like a cartoon character called Nanamori. And he keeps, throughout this whole episode, he keeps singing the Nanamori little tune, and he puts stickers on people. I mean, this kid is a really carefree individual, I just have to say that. But moving on, after that opening scene, we're actually taken back to the school where with Miss Kanda, Sakura, Yuki, and Masami, and Ogami's kind of passed out because he's lost, if you remember correctly. Now, again, Sakura's actually being informed that Ogami's life is not in danger, he'll be okay. So he's not fully lost, he's just recovering. So that was kind of interesting. Now we do find out Mrs. Kanda actually starts talking about the condition that Ogami and what being lost actually means, to a point. Now apparently if a codebreaker overuses their special ability, it will disappear and cause anomalies in their body. So that was kind of interesting. And apparently it also takes a day to recover, at least for Ogami in this case. Now we also find out a little more information about Miss Kanda. This is what we were actually waiting for. Who are you, Miss Kanda? Guess what? Now we know. Apparently she's an agent for Eden. That's interesting. Which also means she's there to aid all of the codebreakers. Now she's not a codebreaker herself, but she's there to aid all the codebreakers. One specifically, Ogami. Now this is why. He's codebreaker number 6, but he's the weakest among the codebreakers. I don't understand that. That makes no sense because he's really strong in my opinion, but apparently she's assigned to Ogami because he's the weakest. So that's why she's been calling him Master, and she was probably the woman on the phone talking to him, so that was most definitely worth mentioning. Now we are taken to a different scene, and more or less Sakura is now getting the lowdown about all of the codebreakers, their numbers, and at least one of their abilities. We see Yuki, he's codebreaker number 3. I definitely thought that was worth mentioning, and he actually can manipulate sound. Now we're taken to Toki, which is number 4, he's codebreaker number 4. Now Masami, he's codebreaker number 2. and he also judges everyone, hence why he's minusing everyone points. That's kind of interesting. So he's the judge. Now, he's not a real judge in real life, but, he's a judge among the groups just to check everyone out that's currently active. So again, I thought that was worth mentioning. Now, we also find out Ruhi, which she was the girl riding the motorcycle in the past episode. She's codebreaker number 5, so she's right underneath Ogami. Now, before any more information goes to Sakura, Mrs. Kanda kind of jumps in, and she's trying to avoid telling Sakura who the number 1 codebreaker is, as does Masami. Now, we already know who the number 1 codebreaker was. It was Hitomi. He was an ex-codebreaker as of now. Well, he is an ex-codebreaker, but he was a codebreaker, and he was number 1. So I thought that was also worth mentioning. Now, we are taken to a different scene, to Sakura's house, and you must be asking yourself, well, why are we at Sakura's house? Now, Miss Kanda brings up a really good, interesting little tidbit of information. If they were able to find, Ogami at the school, then they already know about his apartment. So instantly, Sakura takes everyone that's currently there to her house. So I thought that was interesting. Now, what's also interesting is when we show up at her house, she's got all these servants. I thought it was just her and her dad. And her, She's got tons of servants. More information about Sakura? This is going to blow your mind. You ready? You sitting down? I know I am. Apparently she belongs to the Kasarari clan. I hope I pronounced that clan right. And this clan, apparently, is the strongest Yakuza organization, and her father's the boss. Wow. I'm sorry, did not see that coming. And she's like all about justice, and here it is, your father's head of a Yakuza organization. Wow. Talk about irony there. Living in the shadows of your dad, trying to save justice and whatnot. Wow. But sorry, I digress. Moving on. Now, apparently, Sakura's mom tells Sakura Toki is here. One of her friends is here, and it's Toki, and he's a little kid. Hilarious. Apparently, that's what happens when he becomes lost. He turns into a kid. So that was interesting. Now, I should also point out, Miss Kanda actually says everyone that's lost has a different form, so I'm interested to see everyone else's form. Now, we are taken to a different scene. We know now Sakura's mom has set up a party, she set up a party for everyone in the banquet hall. And you see all the Yakuza drinking beer and whatnot, and Toki as a child drinking beer, and he's lying about it to Masami and Sakura. Oh, it's kind of funny. I just had to mention that. But anyways, Masami takes off a few points from Toki just because I guess he just doesn't like his behavior. And again, Sakura's chewing out Toki because he looks like a kid, but you gotta understand, he's more of an adult than Sakura is. He's just in a child's body. This kind of reminds you of Dragon Ball GT to a point. You remember when Goku was transformed into a little kid, even though he's a grandfather, So I thought that was ironic there in general. But again, sorry, I digress. I'm sorry. Moving on. Again, while all this is going on, Sakura is being talked about outside. We're taken to a different scene. Apparently, Masami is now watching over everything at night. He's like the front door bodyguard per se, and you see Toki joining him, and they have an open conversation about Sakura and what's really happening. And Masami brings up a good point. When they were back at the school, why were there 2 groups targeting Ogami and Sakura? They don't know. It seems very pointless it does seem pointless, but he does point that out. He also points out about Sakura being a rare species, which we still do not know. But again, we don't know why Hitomi is after, Sakura, but is it because she's a rare species? Or is it because of Ogami in general taking an interest or protecting her? We don't know, but he does talk about it. Now we do go to a different scene, and it is morning, and Ogami is now awake, and he's doing a little catch-up with Miss Kanda, and now he's informed about the codebreaker, the ex-codebreaker number 1 named Hitomi, that he was probably behind everything. So now he's a little caught up. Now we are taken to kind of a different scene. We see, now I hope I get this right, do you remember Yukihina, who was, looks like underneath one of Hitomi's men? Yeah, Yukihina. We see a little cutscene of him, and then we see Ruhi. Now, Ruhi is being contacted by Eden. And why has she been contacted by Eden? Apparently, they now know that Toki is lost as well, next to Ogami. So, they call her in to go to Sakura's residence. We don't know why though. That seems a little too good to be true in my opinion. Now Ruhi kind of draws the same conclusion. She's like, it doesn't make sense. Why would you want all the code breakers underneath one roof? Doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. But again, I'm sorry, I digress. Moving on to the next scene, we actually see Sakura and her father. I should say not Sakura and her father. We just see Sakura's father in general, and you see Ogami. He's now awake. He's staring at a sword on a mantle, and obviously Sakura's father says, "Well, you can borrow my sword. Sure, here you go." And you see him playing with the sword. But before long, the house is struck. I said struck. I'm sorry. It was struck by, it looked like lightning. So we do know that Ogami has a sword now, but out of nowhere, Sakura's house has been struck by electricity. But before that actually happens, we see Sakura's father telling Ogami, "I know you've killed before. I know those eyes. I'm the same way." So Sakura's father, since he is a Yakuza boss, he's gone the same route that Ogami's gone, and he's like, if anything happens to my daughter, I almost said sister, I'm sorry. If anything happens to my daughter, it's like, I'm going after you type of feeling. I'm like, you don't threaten a code breaker, you SOB. You don't ever threaten someone with power. Even though you're a boss, he's above you. He takes out the trash. You just supply the garbage. But anyways, I digress. Anyways, Sakura's house has been struck by lightning, or not lightning in general, but like an electric attack. Now obviously we know it's Hitomi because he's the only one we've seen next to Masami who has that kind of power. Now again, we are taken to a kind of a different scene where we see Hitomi take Sakura, and I know this was just really soon. I didn't see this coming. I'm like, already? He's here, he's taking Sakura, but we really don't know why. But we do see Yuki. He tries to actually get involved and I guess stop what was going to happen, but he was defeated. So Yuki, he's actually been defeated, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Now again, Ogami, he is woken up, he's no longer lost, and he's got his sword and he's trying to take on Hitomi. So I thought this was interesting. I'm like, great, we've got a great battle. We've got Yuki, we've got Ogami, but Yuki's already been defeated, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Now we do see Miss Kanda jump in and she starts shooting, but yeah, that doesn't do anything. And again, we see Ogami pick himself back up, pull his sword out, and attack. And I thought that was also interesting, but I'm sorry, that really wasn't a drawn out battle in my opinion. You got so many people that can't do jack. That's what actually sucks about all this. Now a little information about Hitomi in a different scene, which I thought was interesting. We actually see how good Ogami has gotten. At least this is from Hitomi's point of view. He believes what he's seeing in Ogami with the sword and everything, quote what he says, how good Ogami has gotten. So he believes Ogami's improved in his sword play, which I'm like, why would he think that's like good of him improving? Then we find out he was his former teacher. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm scratching my head. I'm like, why would you say that? Then he says, as his teacher, he couldn't be more proud, like more happier. I'm like, so Hitomi was Ogami's teacher, which was interesting. But moving on to the next scene, we actually see Masami. He says the word dance and he actually attacks Hitomi, jumps right in there. And then Rohi, guess what? She's there now. So that was interesting. And she catches Sakura as Masami does his attack. Now again, we see Toki. He's no longer lost and he's back. So that's also interesting. Now the big part here. We see Ogami, and it's like, wow. We see Ogami. He's now bad. He's pissed. Oh, he's pissed. And he asks Hitomi why he fell to evil. Why is he dark? Why is he bad? Why did he join the dark side? And the only answer we get from Hitomi is revenge. I'm like, it's always about revenge, really? So he says it again, revenge, but what kind of revenge? Revenge against Eden. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But taken to a different scene, we see Hitomi he has his hands in his pocket the whole time. He hasn't done jack, so all of his attacks have been with his hands in his pocket. And we see Ogami, he has his sword, that's really not going to do anything. Then we see Toki attacking, kind of pointless. The build-up was seeing Toki and Ogami doing a double team attack on Hitomi. That's what we were waiting for. So this is definitely worth watching, but it was short-lived because the attack is no good. Now we see Roi and Masumi. Now apparently Hitomi has like a giant I don't want to say a giant hand, but like not his hand above his head, but you see an electrical ball of electricity above his head, and he's trying to focus it, but it's no good. He's about to throw it at everyone. Throw it at Ogami, Yuki, Toki, Masami, and Roi, as well as Sakura. He's getting ready to throw his ultimate attack. And again, this was actually really interesting in my opinion, because you didn't see this coming. There is no way you could have ever saw this kind of attack actually coming. We see not just Hitomi with a magical power, like his ability to the max, but we do a WTF moment with Sakura. She jumps right in out of nowhere and she absorbs the attack. She's not a codebreaker. What the heck is she? She's called a rare species, but you're like, what? So again, that was, huh? And while all this is going on, apparently Sakura, well, in front of Sakura, I should say, I guess she finds out that Hitomi was once a codebreaker #1, because they do talk about it. Because Hitomi gets all built up, and he's like, it's been a while since anyone's called me #1, at least from Masumi when he calls him #1. So as soon as Masumi actually calls him Codebreaker #1, he's like, well, no one's ever called me Codebreaker #1 in a while, so I guess I'm gonna have to live up to my name. That's when it got a little serious. But again, Sakura jumps in, absorbs the power, and it's done. It gets better. Hitomi calls it quits, literally out of nowhere. He's like, I think I've seen enough. And you're like, what? And then it starts to make sense. Here's the reason. It was a diversion. All the codebreakers under one roof, it was a diversion. He didn't want Sakura. Are you kidding me? The only thing he really wanted to see was what Sakura probably could really do. Here's the catch. This is the kicker. Now remember Yukihina? We saw him in a brief cutscene in this episode. He's captured the Prime Minister, and that's where the episode ends. I'm like, wow, that was one heck of a heck of a trap, in my opinion. Now, for final thoughts, what's going to happen to the Prime Minister? Very interested in that. And also, Sakura's father has witnessed everything. Heard his daughter being hit by that electrical attack and her absorbing it. Oh, what's going to happen there? Does his family have a secret? Does Sakura's father know something that we don't know? Guess we'll find out. Now, as for everyone being underneath the same roof, what's going to happen in the next episode? I mean, are they going to go their separate ways? Are they going to go straight after Hitomi just to recapture the Prime Minister? We don't know. But those are just a couple little small things I just want to throw out there. Now, as for my rating, 4 out of 5. I should give this by all means a 4.5 out of 5. But there's a lot of questions, and I don't like that when they're unanswered, so I cannot give this a 4.5 out of 5. So final rating, 4 out of 5. But again, comment down below, thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe above, and definitely comment down below. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know what you thought is going to happen in the next episode coming up. And again, check me out on Twitter and follow me if you want. But again, that ends it for today, at least for now. I still have 2 more walkthroughs and reviews to do. Today anyways. I'll probably do them tomorrow morning, but I'm going to try to squeeze at least 1 more in tonight, so definitely stay tuned. But before I go, I gotta say it. Can't stop the access, but you can watch the feed. I'll see you later, guys.